Disclaimer, the comments made in this video are intended for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to offend anyone.
Welcome back, folks. Today we're watching Bill Maher do what most of us secretly wish someone would. Point out that the left's new reality optional policy might be fun for Twitter debates, but it doesn't exactly work in the real world. Brace yourself for blunt truths and roasted logic. Let's start with Bill Maher doing what no one on the left wants to do anymore, asking why we're pretending obvious reality is up for debate.
I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. And there's a lot of stuff like that on the left. And when conservatives see it, they say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to go along with reinventing society, often pointlessly, even if we have to cancel democracy to do it. That's what they're saying. They see gender as only a construct and sex at birth, and they say, we're not doing that. Transing kids by self-diagnosis with no age limit, no parental notification, and no acknowledgement of social contagion, not doing it. Asylum now covers any reason for anyone to come to America, not doing it. Homelessness is a lifestyle. Natural immunity doesn't count anymore. Whiteness is toxic. In women's prisons, welcoming the Intifada. We're not doing it. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath, insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5, isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say it. Math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say I mean, you can, but it doesn't make it true because you're not Harry Potter.
Separating sports by physics. That's why leagues existed that way long before Twitter discovered activism. And when it comes to kids, Maher's right. We don't let minors vote, drink, or get tattoos, but we're supposed to treat life-altering decisions as vibe-based. That's not compassion, that's negligence. Next, watch Bill Maher patiently ask a simple question, and then watch it get buried under 12 layers of But America Bad.
You had to live in the Middle East, so tomorrow, where would you live? What city would you live in?
Well,
where do you think you'd be comfortable in that dress?
I'm sure it would not be comfortable in this dress in any of the various Middle Eastern countries that have been destabilized by
You're not
the United States.
You're not really blaming it on Whitey.
Listen.
Are you? You're blaming Islam on Whitey?
I'm not blaming Islam on Whitey.
What you're saying, we destabilized? That's why you can't wear that
dress? Did we not
destabilize?
Wait
a second.
We were funding organizations in Syria during the Syrian civil war, starting under the Obama administration.
That's why
Did that not destabilize Syria?
No, what's destabilized?
There's a literal Al-Qaeda
about your
leader.
Dress.
Oh,
why?
It looks good. I know it looks
good. You're saying you can't wear that dress in Syria because of Whitey destabilizing?
I didn't say that.
Okay, that's what it said.
Okay,
great.
But
that's
the United
what it
States did
like.
destabilize various Middle Eastern countries. Are you going to deny that?
And I asked about the dress, and you went right to destabilize. So is that why you couldn't wear that dress? Why couldn't you wear that dress? Why could you walk down?
You want me to talk about jihadism and Islam, but
why won't you?
Listen.
Why won't you? Why?
I don't believe in jihadism, which is why I'm furious that the United States just had a freaking
It's not just jihadism that is preventing you from wearing that dress. Are you saying every Muslim is a jihad? I don't think they are.
Bill.
Okay, why can't you wear that dress?
Let's focus for a second.
No, you won't answer this question.
Watch how fast a concrete question turns into a sociology lecture. Maher is pointing out that blaming the West for everything avoids admitting uncomfortable truths. If a question about clothing requires 12 disclaimers and still no answer, maybe the problem isn't the question. Here, Maher explains how calling everything racist doesn't fix problems. It just hands elections to people you'll hate even more.
The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore. Or on immigration. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killing. And one result is that the far-right parties are in the government now there for the first time. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gangs started a drug turf war using hand grenades. Calling it racist doesn't solve the problem. It hands future elections to someone who will solve the problem and who, I promise, you're not going to like.
For years, Europe does it was the left's favorite mic drop until Europe actually did it. Maher's point is brutal but simple. Ignoring real consequences doesn't make you compassionate, it makes you ineffective. When every problem is dismissed as racism, voters eventually choose someone who promises solutions. In this clip, Bill Maher points out how modern parenting went from "that's ridiculous" to "you're right, sweetie, reality is optional."
Democrats seem to be afraid of everything. They were petrified of COVID, masking 2-year-olds who never would have died from it and keeping schools closed for far too long. They're definitely afraid of their kids, who from time immemorial have always come up with bad ideas. Their kids, thinking up stupid shit what they do. But parents used to tell them, that's ridiculous. The world doesn't work that way. Not today's parents. They say, you're right, honey. Gender is just a social construct. Please, sometimes your mother and I forget which one of us has the...
Maher's joke lands because it hits a nerve. Fear replaces judgment. From overreacting to COVID to outsourcing parenting to children themselves, adults stop being adults. Kids have always had wild ideas. That's normal. What's new is parents treating every phase as wisdom and every boundary as oppression. Up next, Maher highlights how Sanctuary City sounded great, right up until the sanctuary actually needed to do some sanctuating.
Let me get back to the border issue politically, because I feel like this is a disaster for the Democrats. They look like Sanctuary City hypocrites. They were the ones who said, look, we're the compassionate people. Everybody should get a shot here. And then when they started sending, I mean, the quotes from Eric Adams, this is the mayor of liberal New York, this issue will destroy our city. The governor, if you're going to leave your country, go somewhere else. Keep walking, is from the governor of New York. They put out a flyer, says New York is one of the most expensive cities in the world. You are better off going to a more affordable city. And also, the club scene is dead. But, I mean, there is a little, I understand a little I told you so from the people on the border.
This is compassion meeting logistics and losing spectacularly. Maher highlights the left's favorite motto, everyone's welcome, which sounds noble until reality shows up. Policies have consequences, and when the consequences clash with ideology, even the most confident slogans start to wobble. This one's a favorite. Bill Maher watches liberal theory collapse the moment motherhood and coyotes enter the chat.
It's fascinating because I've been on this sort of journey through motherhood where, I've always been a very liberal person, maybe even a libtard. But once you have a kid, you start having thoughts that have been characterized as conservative. Yes. As soon as I had a kid, I was like, I need a gun now. Yeah. Not for myself, because I've got coyotes in my yard. Right. I've got coyotes everywhere. And before I had a kid, I was like, they coexist with us. Coyotes were here first. I'm in the coyotes' home. Now I'm like, let's make hats out of them. Let's make hats. Let's make coyote boots, coyote earrings out of their eyeballs. It's just...
Before kids, coexistence. After kids, perimeter security. When responsibility shows up, ideology quiets down. It's amazing how quickly trust the system becomes, I need to protect my family. And somehow that's labeled conservative. Here, Maher reacts to Gen Z rediscovering communism and reminds us that history exists for people who bother to read it.
20% of Gen Z agree with the statement, society would be better off if all property was owned by the public and managed by the government. And another 29% say they don't know if that's a good idea. Here's who does know. Anyone who wasn't born yesterday. So when you say, you're old, you don't get it. Get what? Abolish the police and the border patrol and capitalism and cancel Lincoln? No, I get it. The problem isn't that I don't get what you're saying or that I'm old. The problem is that your ideas are stupid.
This clip is a reminder that novelty doesn't equal insight. Maher laughs at the fantasy of abolishing capitalism, police, and borders because, honestly, anyone who's been alive longer than a meme sees the chaos coming. Youthful idealism is cute until it starts rewriting the manual of reality. Next, Bill Maher commits the ultimate sin in modern media, asking why we weren't told the whole story.
I saw in the paper today, kind of a big story, I think. I wonder how much it's going to get covered in the liberal media, because it's about how natural immunity, they did a giant study, 65 countries, or maybe something like 65 countries, many, many different studies. They looked at them all. Natural immunity, as good or better than the vaccine. Something I've been saying since the beginning, and I get called an anti-vaxxer. That's not an anti-vaxxer. This is the kind of thing, my problem with the media from both sides is not that you guys lie. It's that you tell me your side of the story that you want me to know. You don't tell me the whole story. I'd be curious as to how much play this story gets, because I remember reading that they did a study of Republicans versus Democrats. The question was, what percentage, this is like a year and a half ago, what percentage of people who get COVID require hospitalization? The answer is less than 1%. Almost half of Democrats thought it was over 50%. They listened to your network. Where do they get that kind of information?
That was to you. That was clear.
Okay, that's bad information they have in their head, and it's from one...
Maher's observation is painfully simple. News isn't always lying, it's cherry-picking. When half the country believes over 50% of COVID patients were hospitalized, maybe it's less a knowledge gap and more a storytelling problem. Sometimes facts don't fit the narrative, and suddenly common sense becomes subversive. In this clip, Maher explains how having no plan, no message, and no identity somehow became a political strategy.
When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are stupid. 2 points on respect for democracy. Democrats win on healthcare, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't.
I'd like to...
I'll say a lot of lies on this show, but I will not accept that.
I thought you might ask me about it. That's why I had to read it. But the point is, it's like, as you probably know, it's like a diary of what happened. But I was looking for, okay, and what's the plan for the future? There wasn't any, and she's just indicative of the party at large. And by the way, that's one of the reasons she lost.
This clip exposes a curious truth. Political energy doesn't always equal problem solving. Maher notes that while Democrats shine on paper issues like healthcare and women's rights, voters care more about safety, borders, and economy. Opposition alone isn't a strategy, and apparently nobody told the party that. Here's Bill Maher calling out the left for replacing science with vibes.
I hate to admit this. This country is not as mature as it thinks it is. We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out too. The left freaked out about a lot of too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people. Like it's not scientific.
But the left certainly stayed scientific.
No, they didn't.
Why not?
Because they think gender that they went way too far with. That's not scientific.
But how did I'm not trying to. How did they go too far with like gender stuff? And I'm not trying to
instead of if I was teaching children, what I would teach them is there is a default setting for the human being, which is heterosexuality, but that doesn't mean every person is that, and we should completely respect everyone who isn't that. But we understand that that's called a minority, and what makes us a great country is that we respect minorities. We don't think they're lesser just because they're lesser in numbers. That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we
When
were.
were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
To teach what?
Don't put on the birth certificate. We'll see. Now we've passed that period now.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I mean,
I know, because it doesn't get in the blue sky bubble.
Wait a minute, I'm not just on blue sky.
I really think that's a lot of it, is that some of this stuff doesn't get in to everybody's media.
Maher's frustration here is simple. You can respect minorities without pretending reality has no default settings. The left didn't just push tolerance, they overcorrected into confusion. When basic biology becomes controversial and parents are told to wait and see, don't act shocked when people feel gaslit instead of educated. Up next, Maher asks an uncomfortable question. If education is your brand, how did the product get this bad?
New York Magazine had an article that came out today. It's called The Big Fail. Here's the quote that they had on the cover. Student achievement has fallen off a cliff, and neither Trump nor the pandemic is to blame. Why do we need the Department of Education if it has done such a job? Kids don't come out of school. First of all, they can't read or do math anymore, and they don't know anything. I really do feel like the Democratic Party, this has been their portfolio for a long time, education.
Right.
Okay, so I feel like if they're gonna get back in office, they have to own this issue a little. Because a lot of the states that are doing better now are like the southern states.
Really? Which one?
Mississippi.
Mississippi's getting better than Louisiana?
See, you're in a bubble.
I'm in a bubble.
You didn't get that story.
Well, I'm glad Mississippi's doing better, and I hope Alabama.
This clip is a masterclass in irony. Democrats have long owned education as their crown jewel, yet achievement plummets while Maher watches from reality. Mississippi and Alabama outperform expectations, proving that ideological ownership doesn't guarantee competence. Maybe the Department of Education should just hand out diplomas with a side of humility. This clip tackles elite universities, where diversity is celebrated as long as everyone thinks the same.
It's not like he didn't have a point about what colleges have become. Am I wrong about that? I read some study that said only 2% of people, the professors at Harvard, called themselves conservative. That's not, for people who are always talking about how great diversity is, there's not a lot of diversity of opinion. Isn't that a problem at elite universities? It's a little incestuous.
Maher hits the uncomfortable truth. Diversity quotas don't cover ideas. At elite schools, conservative voices are nearly invisible, and the debate bubble is tighter than a Zoom call in a closet. When everyone thinks the same, innovation dies, and apparently, so does a healthy sense of irony. And finally, Maher sums it all up. Pushing too far left doesn't make society better. It just sends the middle running in the opposite direction.
You can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killing. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gang.
Maher's analogy is perfect. Politics needs brakes as much as acceleration. Go too far left, and the middle scurries right, leaving chaos behind. He's fine with momentum, but not off a cliff. A subtle reminder that even gas pedals need careful handling, or someone ends up in a ditch. And that's Bill Maher, folks, reminding us that reality still matters, even when Twitter thinks it doesn't. If you enjoyed watching Common Sense, get loud, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss the next reality check.